The ring was her home. Not just her home, her kingdom. The red ropes were her castle walls, the black mat her throne room, and the championship, currently held high above her head, was the crown she had forged from sacrifice and dominance. The champion was speaking. The crowd, as they were trained to do, booed her arrogance. She smirked, soaking in the noise. It was predictable. It was comfortable. She was in complete control of this arena, of this show, of this entire universe. "And as long as I am here," she bellowed, her voice echoing, "no one, I mean no one, will ever—" She never finished the sentence. It started not as music, but as a sound. A single, piercing digital shriek, a sound of static and glass shattering. The crowd went silent, not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that happens right before a catastrophe. The champion's practiced smirk didn't fade. It froze. She tilted her head, confused. Then the guitar riff hit. A riff that hadn't been heard in these arenas for 5 years. A sound that belonged to ghosts, to legends, to a different era. The arena didn't cheer. Not at first. They just stood. A collective primal gasp from 20,000 people. Phones were fumbled for. People looked at each other, eyes wide, asking the same silent question. Is this real? This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't a graphic. This was happening. The sound didn't just break the promo, it broke reality. Her silhouette appeared on the ramp, backlit by piercing white light, obscured by theatrical smoke. The champion's face told the entire story. The color drained from it. The confidence, the arrogance, the power she had spent years building evaporated in a single second. This wasn't just a challenger. This was the architect. This was the one who had laid the very foundation the champion now claimed to rule. The woman on the ramp didn't move. She just stood there, letting the moment hang, letting the realization sink in. She wasn't wearing her old ring gear. She was wearing a simple, tailored black suit. She looked less like a wrestler and more like an executioner. Slowly, deliberately, she began to walk. Each step on the metal ramp was a drumbeat, counting down the end of an era. The champion, for the first time in her reign, looked small. She looked vulnerable. She looked, more than anything, like a fraud. The woman, the blueprint, as they used to call her, stepped through the ropes. She never broke eye contact. The two women stood inches apart. The champion was trembling, caught between rage and terror. The blueprint, by contrast, was perfectly, terrifyingly calm. The crowd was screaming now, a deafening roar. The champion lifted her microphone, her hand shaking, but the blueprint simply raised a hand to silence her. She didn't want to talk. She just smiled, a cold, knowing smile. Then she reached out and with one finger tapped the championship belt on the champion's shoulder. A simple tap. It wasn't a challenge. It was a dismissal. The broadcast feed cut to a commercial, but the real story was just beginning. Backstage, in the cramped, chaotic area known as the gorilla position, there was no celebration. There was only panic. Producers, headsets clamped on, were white-faced, shouting at each other. "Who cleared this? Was she cleared? Get me an answer." Writers were frantically tearing pages out of their scripts. The entire second hour of the show, meticulously planned, was now garbage. The women who were scheduled for the next match, two rising stars who had been fighting for this spot for months, just stood by the curtain, their ring gear on, their music ready. But they knew. They weren't going out. Their opportunity, their one chance to impress, had just been vaporized. They were collateral damage. One of them, the younger one, had tears welling in her eyes. She wasn't sad. She was furious. A veteran producer, a man who had seen giants come and go, ripped his headset off and threw it against a travel case. "She wasn't supposed to be here," he whispered to a younger assistant. "She wasn't even in the building 10 minutes ago. She walked in, past security, and just went out." This wasn't a triumphant return planned for months. This wasn't a happy surprise. This was an invasion. This was an unsanctioned, deliberate act of war. And no one, not even the people in charge, knew what was happening next. The champion held her composure just long enough for the cameras to turn off. Her face was a mask of granite as she stalked through the curtain. She walked straight past the head of creative, who tried to stop her, putting a hand on her shoulder. Let's talk about this, he pleaded. The champion didn't slow down. She ripped her arm away, the look in her eyes so cold it stopped him in his tracks. She made it to her private dressing room, the one with her nameplate on the door, and slammed it shut. The lock was heard clicking from down the hall. For a moment, there was silence. Then the sound started. First, a metal chair scraping across the floor. Then, the unmistakable sound of a full water bottle being thrown against the wall, exploding. Then, a scream. Not a scream of anger, but of pure, undiluted frustration. It was muffled, but everyone heard it. This wasn't the fear of a rival. This was the primal rage of an artist who had just watched someone walk into her gallery and paint over her masterpiece. She had carried this division. She had wrestled in the empty arenas. She had built this kingdom with her own 2 hands. And in 30 seconds, with one old familiar song, her entire legacy was erased. She was no longer the champion. She was just the person keeping the belt warm for her. The next afternoon, the company hastily assembled an emergency press conference. The room wasn't filled with the usual wrestling bloggers. This was mainstream. ESPN, Fox Sports, the Bleacher Report. They were all here, smelling blood in the water. They weren't here for a match. They were here for the why. The Blueprint walked out, not in the suit from last night, but in ripped jeans and a faded t-shirt from her original rookie run. She looked relaxed, sipping a coffee as if she had just returned from a long vacation. She sat down, and the flashes from the cameras were blinding. The first question was the obvious one. After 5 years, why now? Why SmackDown? She leaned into the microphone, a small, almost bored smile on her face. Simple, she said, her voice smooth and confident. I was bored. She let that hang in the air. I sat at home and I watched. I watched this division I built, the one I bled for, become a monarchy. It became a kingdom with one very loud queen. She paused, taking another sip. And I realized, as I watched her call herself the greatest, she was only the greatest because I wasn't here. I never actually lost my crown. She never said the champion's name, not once. She didn't have to. With one calm, dismissive statement, she had reframed the entire last 5 years. It wasn't an era, it was just an intermission. What we choose to forget is why she left. We remember the 5-star matches, the sold-out arenas, the iconic moments. We forget the breakdown. We forget the pressure, the exhaustion, the crushing, inescapable weight of being the Blueprint. She left because she was broken. She was the one who had to be perfect, every single night. She was the one who had to carry the interviews, the merchandise, the face of a billion-dollar company on her shoulders. She didn't just break the glass ceiling. She was forced to live on top of it, exposed and isolated. This return, this calm demeanor, it felt different. This wasn't just about reclaiming a championship. This felt like reclaiming a narrative. The last time, the machine had consumed her. She became the icon, a product, a brand. She lost herself in the noise. The question now was, could she return without being devoured by her own legend? The thousands of fans cheering her name weren't cheering for the woman who had just walked out. They were cheering for the memory. They were cheering for the ghost. And in this business, a ghost is the most dangerous opponent of all. She wasn't just fighting the champion. She was fighting the impossible standards she herself had set. Let's talk about the others. The ones who don't get the private dressing rooms, the ones who don't have their faces on the production trucks. Let's talk about the woman we'll call the riser. For 8 months, the riser had been climbing. She wrestled the opening matches. She wrestled the short matches on the B shows. She clawed her way up, winning over the crowd, piece by painful piece. Next week, she was finally supposed to have her moment, a #1 contenders match, the main event of SmackDown. It was her turn. Now she was sitting in the public locker room, her gear still in her bag, watching the press conference on a small, grainy monitor. Her phone was silent. Her match had been quietly, unceremoniously pulled from the internal schedule. Her posters, which had just been put up, were being taken down. The Blueprint's return didn't just add a star to the show. It created a black hole. It sucked all the light, all the oxygen, all the time out of the room. The champion is angry, fueled by ego and disrespect. But the riser, she's heartbroken. She wasn't just pushed down the ladder. The ladder itself was kicked over, and no one even bothered to look down. She's invisible. And she knows she might as well not even show up next week. The champion is on the floor of her hotel room. The shattered glass from the mirror is still in the corner. She hasn't let housekeeping in. She's been staring at the wall for hours. Her phone buzzes. She ignores it. It buzzes again. It's her father. She finally picks it up, her voice small, tired. "Hey, Dad." His voice is careful, not the voice of a fan, but the voice of a father. "I saw what happened. Are you okay, kiddo?" And that's what breaks her. The champion disappears and the daughter surfaces. Her voice cracks. "They didn't even tell me, Dad." The confession bursts out, a sob catching in her throat. I've been working so hard. I did everything they asked. And she just shows up and everyone forgets. All anyone is talking about is her. It's like I don't even matter. Am I just a placeholder? This is the part we're not meant to see. We see the arrogant queen on TV. We see the bravado. We don't see the woman gripped by the most profound, paralyzing self-doubt imaginable. She's not just defending a title. She's defending her own worth. And the person she has to measure up to is the very person she had on a poster on her wall as a teenager. The next Friday, SmackDown opens. The champion is in the ring, holding her title. She's not arrogant tonight. She's furious. She cuts a promo, her voice shaking with raw emotion. She demands the Blueprint come to the ring right now and face her. She calls her a coward. She calls her a ghost. The crowd is electric, chanting the Blueprint's name. But her music doesn't hit. She doesn't appear on the ramp. Instead, the broadcast feed glitches. The screen cuts to a grainy, black-and-white, hidden camera-style feed. It's a boiler room, deep in the backstage area. The Blueprint is there, her back to the camera. But she is not alone. Standing in front of her is the riser, the woman whose match was canceled. And next to her are 3 other women from the locker room, the forgotten ones, the ones who had been told to wait their turn. "She's out there right now," the Blueprint says, her voice low, intense, pointing to a small monitor showing the champion in the ring. "She's demanding my attention, because that's what the system taught her. That's what it taught me, that there's only room for one, that we all have to fight for that one single spot." The riser looks confused. "I don't understand. She has what you want, right? The title." The Blueprint turns, and for the first time, we see her face. She's not smiling. She's simmering. "She thinks I came back for her. She thinks I came back for that." She gestures to the monitor. "She's wrong. I came back for you." The riser's eyes widen. "What? What do you mean?" The Blueprint steps closer to the hidden camera as if speaking directly to the audience at home. "The champion, she's not the enemy. She's just the final boss of a game that's rigged. She's the symptom. The disease is the system itself. The one that told you to wait. The one that told me I had to be perfect. The one that built a throne and told all of you to fight for it." The realization hits like a physical blow. The confrontation last week, the single dismissive tap on the championship belt. It wasn't a challenge. It was a target. She didn't return to win the title. She returned to destroy it. Her goal wasn't to take the spotlight. It was to shatter the spotlight into a dozen pieces so everyone could finally have their own. The champion is in the ring, screaming for a ghost, completely oblivious. She thinks she's in a rivalry, but the real war is starting without her. SmackDown wasn't just turned upside down by one woman's return. It was about to be torn down, from the inside, by the very architect who laid its foundation. The blueprint wasn't back for a match. She was back for a revolution. And the champion, she was just the first lonely casualty.